What's up, everybody? We're back. Um, one thing I haven't covered, which I want to cover, are rifle optics. We went over rifle scopes, we went over pistol optics, and I want to make a video rifle optics. Now, there are a wide variety of rifle optics, and I'm going to cover the most popular ones. And I understand that I'm going to leave out Holosun just because support China. But if you guys want to support China, that is on you. I mean, there's more reasons why, but China is the biggest one. So, when you guys build rifles, you need to understand what you're building that rifle for. And there is no such thing as a do it all rifle. And I understand that you could put an LPVO and an offset red dot on whatever gun, and that is fine. But your primary aiming optic is meant for your primary function of shooting. So if you're going to put an LPVO on there, you're not going to use your red dot as your primary aiming device, or optic, I should say. So that's very important. And I understand that LPVOs have come a long way in using them, and there's a wide variety of. There's Leopold, there's Nightforce, there's Primary Arms, there's Vortex, there's tons of them. Tons of LPVOs, tons of rifle optics. But I want to go over why I suggest what I said. So if you want an LPVO and you're stuck on an LPVO, just understand that this on 1X is not this at all. This is also significantly heavier. You need to put a scope mount on your gun, and there is a functionality of understanding that your throw lever is either going to be set on 1 or whatever the highest magnification is, 8, and then your offset red dot. And I have this currently. I have a NX 2.5 by 20, and I have an offset aim point T2, but not currently on the gun because my gun's just set up for competition right now. But I will say that when you are building out a gun with LPVO, you need to really understand what you're doing with an LPVO. It is not a do-it-all optic as much as people like to think it is. It's very heavy, makes your gun heavier, and I just don't see I don't see an LPVO being good for a fighting rifle at all. And I understand that the military uses them, but sometimes the military makes really bad decisions. Point in case is the new M7. Terrible. So let's go over what I think an LPVO should be used for. An LPVO should be used for a mid-range 14.5, 16-inch gun. And it should be more of not a fighting rifle. And it can be used in that role, but it's not primary role. I would say you could gather intel with this. You can scan horizon. You could do a lot of things with an LPVO. Personally, I would use an LPVO just for competition, or a PCL, or any type of rifle competition is great. You have means to hit targets out to, I don't know, 800 yards with an LPVO, depending on the magnification and the quality of the glass. And it works great. And there's nothing wrong with LPVOs. I just don't want to use them on a primary fighting rifle at all. And when I say primary fighting rifle, I mean like your shit hits the fan gun. I just don't think an LPVO fits that role. It's heavy. You're not going to want to haul all that weight around. You got the scope weight plus the mount weight, plus an offset red dot, because most people do that. And it just too bulky. It's too heavy. Too much shit in the way. It's just not means of fighting for me personally. I've had a 14.5 with a LPVO and offset red dot and a laser and all the cool shit, and it's too heavy. It's way too heavy. So LPVOs I recommend would be the Nightforce rifle scopes, or the NX8. Any ATACR and their new NX6 line, I think, has an LPVO, which is pretty nice. Yeah, there's 2 of them. They come in different reticles. I would highly encourage you to study with what reticle you want, as opposed to not picking the most basic stuff. And I understand that there are purposes for why these reticles are available, but something like this would be great with a tree, a nice bright reticle. That way on 1x and max zoom, you get to see full tree, and then on 1x you're just going to see a nice bright circle. And I will say that of all the LPVOs I've ever used, the NX8 has, if not the brightest reticle. I also think the EOTech Voodoo 1x10 has an extremely bright reticle. I have yet to get my hands on one of them, but from what I've seen, they have extremely bright reticles if you guys want to stay on the train of LPVOs. I understand there's primary arms, and I understand that they're very competitive in pricing, but the glass is not that good. I find that the glass is not nearly as good as it should be or can be. For the NX8 line, you're gonna have this FC Mill, which is the NX8 mill reticle for the LPVO, and then this is their NX6 line, which is more competition use, I suppose. And then obviously you're gonna throw a offset red dot on there, and whatever one you choose. Now, to primary fighting optics, and I understand that you're looking at Aimpoint and you're like, oh my god, there's so much money. Yes, Aimpoint is money because they are quality optics and they have extreme durability. They have crystal clear glass. They have super clear dot clarity and a wide variety of adjustments for brightness, along with the T2's 5 years of constant on. I think it's 8 that you can constantly leave it on for 5 years, which is phenomenal. And I love this optic. This is by far my favorite red dot to put on any gun, offset, rifle, whatever it is. This is by far my favorite. Now, do I want you to go out and spend this amount of money if you don't have it? Absolutely not. There are significantly cheaper options than buying a T2. And that's where this comes in. I also own this. This is an extremely good optic. It is awesome. It just lacks the night vision capability, which most people don't need anyway. And it has, instead of, I think, 12 brightness settings, I think it only has 8, pretty sure. And this is a phenomenal optic for the money. And it comes with a mount for $500. And you could get these for around $400 during like Black Friday and July 4th sales and Christmas time. And this is an extremely good optic for the money. I'm pretty sure that Holosuns, their top-notch Holosuns now, are almost approaching this price. I believe that they're over $400, and we're not going to look at them because I don't want to support Holosun. I've owned Holosun, probably never again. But this thing is awesome, and it does the same thing the T2. This actually has night vision settings. I didn't realize that. So it has 6 daylight and then 4 night vision. I don't think it's as good as the T2, but if you guys want night vision, you don't want to buy a T2, you go with the Duty RDS. And there's a new Duty RDS called the MRDS, and it has the depth circle if you guys like that. I personally don't. I think it takes up a lot of room. It's unnecessary, and I just don't like it, but that's my personal opinion. And if you guys don't want to spend that money, you could buy a patrol optic for under $500. And you can get these for $350 from places when they're on sale. These are awesome optics. They're a little heavier. They're a full-size red dot. They're not the micro kind. These are great, and they come with a mount. I will say there is a very special battery that goes in these, so you need to stock up on those as opposed to the Duty RDS and the T2 using 2032 batteries. And I also don't recommend Acros as much as people love them. My Acro was returned because it got water on. And then next on the list are EOTechs. Now, if you have an astigmatism, which most people do, I would recommend the EOTech. And what's great about EOTechs or the EXPS line, that you don't need a 3-0, you could use a 2-0, is one, they come with a mount, they sit at a 1.7 height, and they have a big glass window. Now, the downside to this, the battery life sucks. This optic is heavy, and the reticle is extremely overdone and bright, and it's just too much sitting in there. Now, I understand they make a 3-1, which is just a single dot, which if I had to use an EOTech and I was given an EOTech, I would ask for a 3-1, or it's just a single dot. These are awesome. My buddy has one, loves it. Very large window, Big ass buttons, great night vision settings if you guys are interested in that. And they work great and they come with a mount. Whereas the Aimpoint has a mount. I just don't recommend using their mount. I recommend buying a mount, a T2 mount. And EOTechs are great. And you can pair them up with a magnifier. I've owned a G43 and G45, and I'm just not the biggest fans of magnifiers, especially when you could use an LPVO. And I understand that you could pop this off the mount and use it as a monocular, and it works great. And you can put it in your pocket. You don't need to have this on your gun at all times, depending on the mount that you have. I know the stock EOTech mount is a quick disconnect, and it works great. And it is what it is, except for the stupid latch that protrudes into the charging handle, and it gets very annoying, and you crunch your finger half the time. But if you want a magnified optic with a red dot, this is one of the ways to do it. So we've covered these and why these are all primary means of fighting. And if you guys are interested in something that is even more quality, you go to the Comp M5. I don't recommend buying the one that has the battery on the top as it gets in your field of view. I recommend buying the one that has the battery on the bottom right here. I think it's the S, Comp M5S. These are awesome. They are slightly bigger than the T2. I don't know what the differences are. I think it's just a T2 with a bigger battery and it sits slightly higher. I think it actually sits the same height as the Duty RDS. These are not. So when you buy a T2 mount, although this will mount to it, it will sit higher than the advertised height, I think by ever so slightly, which is cool. This mount, I think, brings it up to a 1.8 or a 1.7, I'm pretty sure. And then this is just flat on the bottom. So whatever mount, if you buy a 193 mount, that's what the height it is. If you put this on a 193, I think it's 233 it comes out to, or 227, some odd ball number, which is cool. I did that for a little bit. I just buy the proper mount for the proper height. And Aimpoint magnifiers, I think they have a 6x magnifier now. I wouldn't recommend, or even their 3x magnifier. I would stick with EOTech magnifiers as their glass is slightly superior. I think this optic, these magnifiers are more durable too. But you guys need to not put Amazon optics on your gun. And I've seen this multiple times. You guys show up with these crappy Amazon optics and they don't hold zero, they break, and it's just like, what are you guys doing? That's the way you aim your gun, and that's your means of making shots on target. And you guys buy Amazon stuff. You guys should just really avoid that and save your money and buy a quality optic. I'm pretty sure you could buy XPS EOTechs for, I'm pretty sure, under $400 now, or under $450, which is pretty damn cheap. You can probably buy it from Primary Arms when they're on sale. And the XPS line is their non-night vision, and it doesn't come with a QD mount. It just comes with a like a dovetail mount, and you don't get the quick disconnect option, which is awesome. And you can get these for the same price as a Holosun, and I don't understand why people don't do that. I understand that there are issues with these, but this is much better than a Holosun. Then there's SIG, and I see a bunch of you guys. I see this all the time. You guys buy this. You buy the Romeo 5X, and these are Holosuns disguised as SIGs, and they're made in China. It literally says made in China on the optic, and I understand it says it's a SIG optic, but they're made in China, and these are crap. I would never recommend these at all. Actually, as a matter of fact, the only SIG optic I recommend is the 4T, and I don't have experience on the 4T, but from what I've heard, the 4T is pretty damn good. Multiple reticle options, different colors, and it uses a T2 mount base. I'm not really a big fan of like buttons like this, as they could hit against your gear and turn on and off. And I'm not really too sure about this optic, but from what I've heard, it's pretty good. But stop buying crap optics and putting them on your gun. Save your money and put good optics on your gun. But what you need to do is figure out what your gun's going to be used for, and then put an optic on it, and then buy a good mount. There's plenty of good companies out there that make good mounts. ScalarWorks is one of them. Awesome mount. I've owned 4 of them, or 3 of them. I think 3 actually, but they're awesome. And I wouldn't recommend buying a Holosun and doing that. I mean, there are people that do it, and there's Holosun optics that do work, and they do get the job done. It's just after you buy a T2, you start to realize that the Holosun is not really as good. The brightness is not nearly there. The reticle is not as crisp, and this mount is horrible, and so is this battery tray. Also, the brightness doesn't nearly go nearly as high as this. This on max brightness is significantly brighter than this on max brightness. And I get it. They're cheaper, but they're not nearly as good. And I will say the way you mount this is directly into the aluminum housing, meaning if you strip a screw inside this, this is useless. This has helicoils in it, meaning if you strip a screw, there is a possibility to save the optic by getting another helicoil and inserting it into the optic. Whereas this, you're kind of screwed because it's directly milled into the optic. There are other issues with this, but we're not going to talk about that. They're not going to make this worse than it already is. But I don't recommend Holosuns. I understand that they work. You guys love them. They're cheaper than T2s. They're cheaper than EOTechs. They're cheaper than Duty RDSs. They're cheaper. They're cheaper alternative that work. And I understand that they're being used in Ukraine at an extremely high level, and they're combat proven and they work great. I'm just not a big supporter of supporting China, and I'm not a big supporter of supporting SIG either after this P320 BS that has gone on. So I will never support SIG, and I understand that they sell scopes and LPVOs, and I know their LPVOs are actually pretty good, but I still wouldn't buy anything SIG related right now. I just want to see guys buying quality stuff and showing up and shooting with quality stuff, because these break. I've actually never really seen a T2 break, to be honest with you. I've gone through 2 of these and still have one. At one point, I owned 2 of them. Never broke. Thousands of rounds. And as far as like LPVOs, I would say the most common is Vortex, Night Force, Leopold. Leopold is awesome, by the way. Crystal clear glass. They just have proprietary, like 30. I think they have a 35 millimeter mount, and you can't use any of the 34 millimeters. And I know there's not many companies that make a 35 millimeter mount. And then if you really want to get into it, you really want to LPVO and you have money, buy an ATACR. These are literally bomb proof, and they make solid reticles. So that's all I have for you guys today. I would really like to see you guys showing up with quality optics and not crap, because crap breaks and then you're going to have to buy it. Just buy once, cry once, and that's that. You guys have a good rest of your day. I'm out.